The initial idea of the film was something separate. My younger brother had written a completely different story. And the film, it wasn't quite working for him, but he had a very, very downbeat ending where this good guy who's gone through the whole movie, and at the end, they say to him, your daughter is buried in a box. She's up in the middle of nowhere. You will never find her. She's going to die in 3 days. The end. And he's like, I don't know if that's really working, and the story's not quite working. And so I said, well, what about just taking that horrible downbeat Seven-style ending of yours and having it as the catalyst to the film as opposed to the finale of another script? What if we have that as a catalyst? You know, what if we discovered this child that couldn't be discovered? It's impossible to discover her. She's in the middle of nowhere, but chance always plays a hand. So what happens then? And we were writing another script at the time, and we'd said to Carnaby, our producers, that we were going to set a movie in the mountains, because I wanted to. And it's naturally more exciting, I suppose, to have a situation like this happen in the middle of nowhere in a more scary environment. Sure, you could have had them find the child in Hyde Park in London or Central Park in New York and run around the city in the subways and sort of, you know, do it that way. But I think, you know, to pull off a perfect crime like this, my attitude was that the kidnappers would have gone to the middle of absolute nowhere where there was as little chance as possible of the child being found. The exposure, the weather would kill the child after a certain amount of time. And it's a horrible thing to say, but sort of the kidnap plot, if you like, it's a very simple one, is that if they kidnap this child and you don't pay them what they want, they get arrested, whatever, and they sit there and they deny everything. And that child will probably die of exposure and starvation right about the time they're getting released due to lack of evidence. So it's a pretty foolproof plan until those pesky climbers come along and, and intervene. What was interesting was that my younger brother and I, you know, we'd written these sequences, and we went to the producers and we said, look, we really want to work out how feasible these things are to do. So the producers were, you know, they were very generous, and they said, well, we'll go prove it. So we went up to the Highlands of Scotland and Snowdonia in Wales, and we went with very qualified, very skilled mountaineers, and they started to take us to these different places, and we would naturally start rewriting the script as we became proficient, and suddenly you realize people don't bang stakes in the side of Great British Mountains anymore. They place protection in, and so you start to get better at it. And then and then during the film and the lead up to the film, we got delayed by 6 months because, you know, the whole recession of the world fell apart. So instead of shooting it in summer 2009, we shot it in spring 2010, which got us even more time to prepare. And by this time, we'd become pretty damn proficient rock climbers. I mean, I was climbing up to sort of, you know, HVS standard UK rock climb. What's that in America? About 5.10, 5.11. And it made for the sequences much more realistic if you have a personal experience of it. You know, people say right from experience. Well, yeah, but you can also go and gain some experience, at least for the physical side of the movie. And now that the film is over, I'm actually going to the Alps next month for a big charity climb. I'm climbing the Eiger, the Matterhorn, and a mountain called Les Dents de Géant, which is the giant's tooth. And this is a massive 2-week expedition in the Alps. And none of that would have ever happened. I would not have even begun to even think I could do that if it wasn't for the training that we put in for this film. Initially, we were going to do all of the film quite low altitude, on sort of low altitude cliffs and crags. But I realized the opening of the film had to be high up. It had to be high up in the mountains. So we chose a very beautiful and a very good rock climbing mountain called Buccal Etive Mor, at the head of Glencoe, which means the great herdsman of Etive, which is a river. You will have seen this mountain in Braveheart, The Eagle of the Ninth, Centurion, and only because it has a very postcard shape, a classic beautiful triangle shape at the front. But in other movies, all it has ever done is had that postcard shot and a few Highland warriors running in front of it, or what have you. But actually, it's got the best incredible rock climbing on the east face, which is right up high on the mountain. So you're looking down over 2,500 foot of air between your feet and stuff. And it became very, so we actually used that mountain for practical reasons as well as picturesque reasons, and tried not to shoot it in sort of quite such a picture postcard way, although we did have to do the one postcard shot because it is beautiful. But going back to it, no, it's tough on location. I mean, first of all, film crew wise, I think everybody, they're down at the car park, they look at the mountain and they all talk the big game. And then they start going up there and you realize a lot of people lose their shit. I mean, they do, you know, and we were not, you know, we had, you know, higher up the mountain for stunt people and climbers and camera people that have got ahead for heights, and lower down the mountain for actors and sort of larger amounts of crew. But, you know, a lot of the crew got very nervous and very scared, even quite low down the mountain. They're straight out of their comfort zone. And, you know, second week of filming, a boulder like this, I mean, a man killer of a thing, just gets dislodged. And it fell straight through the crew. How it didn't hit anyone, I don't know. And I mean, you know, the thing is the first that it happened, I was like it was horrible. It was like a bomb going off in Piccadilly Circus. You could just feel the fear go through the entire crew. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, they're going to tell me you can't do this sequence, get off the mountain, rewrite it, because you could just, the fear just completely went through 90% of the crew. But you got to be practical about this. These are mountains. They are rubbling away. And the problem was we had taken too many people up the mountain. And on the subsequent days, it was like, right, you're not needed, you're not needed, you're not needed, you're not needed. Because, you know, you don't have, it's not a playground up there. It's very, very dangerous, very, very serious. And I was not keen on doing lots of green screen shots. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, if it was a big Hollywood film, they'd probably, you know, they probably do a lot of it on sound stages and green screen the back off. I never buy it. It never looks real to me. It never looks real to me. The mountaineering sequences, the climbing sequences, they're going to be as realistic as you're going to get. You know, none of this sort of, you know, there have been films and Hollywood films and a few other films in the past where I just get the impression that the people directing them had never been on a mountain. They'd never put a harness on, because they were ridiculous. You know, you got films of people leaping across 100-meter divides and smashing ice axes into cliffs the other side, and just silly stuff, just really silly. And I always think that action movies are great if you never let go of the logic. The moment you drop logic, the moment you throw logic out the window or reason out the window, it just gets a bit silly.